going to transition into the second thing I wanted to talk about today, which is going to be a game that I actually played on Xbox Game Pass. For those of you who don't know, I am an Xbox gamer. That's what I like to do besides movies and women's soccer, of course. But I decided to check out this game on Game Pass. There's a quest that came out for their rewards program. And for those of you who don't know, Xbox has a rewards program where if you play their games on Game Pass, you get rewards points that you can use to spend on gift cards, Xbox Game Pass memberships, gifts for other people, giveaways, whatever. And it's just a really nice program. So last week within that program, they had an objective to collect, I think, 50 pieces of candy in Costume Quest 2. So just to get the points, because I like to do all the quests, I decided to go ahead and play Costume Quest 2. I played for like an hour. I completed the quest, and I'm like, wow, that was actually a lot more fun than I ever thought it would be. So I ended up picking it up a week later, and I finished the game in its entirety last weekend. And I have to say, like, wow, that game was pretty spectacular. So what is Costume Quest 2? Costume Quest 2 is a game developed by Double Fine, and it's the studio headed up by Tim Schafer. They were actually recently acquired by Microsoft, so they get introduced into the Xbox family, and thereby all their games go on to Game Pass, if I'm not mistaken. And Costume Quest 2 is one of them. So what Costume Quest 2 is then is you follow the story of these two kids named Ren and Reynold. I know their names are very similar sounding. They both have that re sound, but basically what happens is they go trick or treating one night and they're collecting candy. It's Halloween. They're going to meet up with their friends. Well, this dentist who is hell bent on basically ending Halloween and keeping kids from rotting their teeth emerges, messes things up, goes back in time, and basically eliminates Halloween altogether and doesn't let kids have their candy and whatnot. And so the future of Halloween and its existence is resting on Ren and Rendell to go rewrite the past in order to bring back Halloween into the present, which sounds really confusing, but if you just play the game for 10 minutes, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They go into it really, really quickly. But the point is, the overall game is just, I really enjoyed it. I would give it a score of like an 8 out of 10 for a few reasons. One, it's simple. It's really, really easy to play through. Two, it doesn't take up a ton of time. Three, it's really, really, really creative, and not only its combat, but also some of its gameplay mechanics as well. You get, along the way in playing this game, you get to play as a character. You play as Ren through Ren's viewpoint for the entire game, but you get to collect different costumes. These costumes have different abilities. For example, you might have a wizard costume, which boosts your attack points, or you might have a pharaoh costume, which boosts your defense points, and you can even bring your teammates back to life. And basically, what you're trying to do is you're just trying to collect as much candy as you can. You're trying to save Halloween, and you just have a ton of fun in the process. It's a really whimsical, really simple time, and it doesn't take a whole ton of time to complete the whole game. I think I maybe took 10 hours to complete the whole game from start to finish, and that's like me collecting everything possible. I went for every piece of candy. I went for every costume. I went for every quest. I bought as many power-up cards as I possibly could, and it was just a really fun, really simple, whimsical time that everybody can enjoy. There is, you do get combat in this game. It's violent, but it's not like hyper violent. Like there's no blood or gore, so it's E for everyone. Everyone can really play it and have a great time with it. Even family members can play together. Like if I had like young cousins or young brothers and young sisters, I would totally be comfortable playing this game with them. So there's fun in it for everybody. Um, I'm trying to think of other ways to sort of describe the game overall without it being too confusing. So we'll start off with the combat here. So the way that you kind of get into combat is along the way when you're trying to complete these quests, you're obviously traveling back to the past and you're meeting very important characters that are going to help you restore Halloween to your present timeline. And in doing so, there are obviously going to be obstacles in your way because the dentist who has trying to end Halloween is putting those obstacles in your way. Well, some of those obstacles are his minions, and the minions are there to basically stop you from trying to foil his plans to end Halloween. So you fight a ton of these minions between the beginning of the game and the ending of the game. And one critique I have about that is you can run into these minions just exploring the world at any time, which can be a little annoying because if you just want to go ahead and collect an extra 100 pieces of candy, you'll likely run into a minion like every 30 steps, which can be a little annoying and a little repetitive. And even at first, I was kind of thinking the combat feels a little repetitive too, because you use one button in combat. You use well, I should say one button at a time. You either use the X button, you either use the Y button, or you use the A button. You use one of those three buttons depending on which character that you fight with. So it's simple in that, and it's more of a timing mechanic when you're doing combat, right? So if you press the X button at the right moment, it'll increase the amount of attack points that you get on the minion that you're fighting. And as you progress through the game, your attacks get stronger because you level up. The more minions you defeat, you level up, and the more candy you get. The more candy you get, you can spend the candy on power up cards. You can spend it on other quests, other costume pieces, or things to upgrade the costumes you already have. So there's a lot of rewards for fighting as many minions as possible, and they encourage that combat. So although it can be a little repetitive, it certainly is worth it, and it's really really rewarding. What are some other very unique things about the game? It's really random, right? Like the game is really, really random in the fact that you never really know what you're going to run into at any given moment. Like I said, running into the minions is not really as predictable as it sounds. You'll run into them often, you'll get into fights often, but it's not very predictable. Like you could run, you could be sprinting through the world, and if you're not paying attention, bam, you'll run into a minion. And it's like, oh my god, like I found myself jumping at running into a random minion at several points in the game. So it keeps you on your toes, and I really like that about the game because it reminds you, hey, you have to be mindful of where you're moving and where you're going at all times. So I thought that was a really nice touch to it overall. Another thing that I found really interesting too is if you finish a fight with these minions, you obviously, the minions can attack you and it can deplete your health. In order to refill your health, the game has an interesting mechanic where you have to go to a water fountain and you take a drink of water. Once you take the drink of water, you heal up your health, all of your squad mates' health, all the way up to 100 points. And you can also eat candy to do so too. So that's another incentive to go ahead and find and win as much candy as possible. So I thought that was a really cool healing mechanic system, and just the concept of eating candy to replenish your health. I thought that was kind of a cool play on Halloween overall. Take that for what it's worth, but I guess it all really depends on the person. So, what are some other things I'm missing about this game in general? The story isn't bad. The story it feels very innocent, very childish on the surface. Like you've seen it probably at some point before. You're trying to save Halloween. I'm sure you've seen movies where you're trying to save Christmas. I'm sure you've seen movies where you're trying to save some kind of holiday. I can't count how many movies I've seen where you're trying to save Christmas. Think of it, this game as that, but with in video game form and with Halloween. And if you're into that kind of thing, it's a ton of fun. So I'd recommend this game to just about anybody overall. So if you're looking for a good time, guys, and you are looking for another Game Pass game to play and just revel in and enjoy it for even a few days, a weekend, or maybe you could even stretch out into a whole week. I know I stretched it out into a whole week or maybe even 2 weeks time, depending on what you got going on. But I would give the game a score of 8 out of a 10 just for how much fun I deeply enjoyed it and how whimsical I found the story. The story was whimsical to the point where I deeply enjoyed it. And I'm like, this game is different. It sticks to Double Fine's DNA. And if you're just looking for something different, fun, unique, that doesn't take up a ton of your time, and is relatively simple, this game would be perfect for you. Or if you're looking for a game to just play with the younger brother, younger sister, younger niece, nephew, cousin, whoever, this game is absolutely perfect for that too. So give it a shot if you've got Game Pass. I highly recommend it. All right, so let's get into the last thing for this episode that I want